Greetings and welcome to another video. In this video I am going to be taking a look at 6 of the games that effectively sold me the Commodore 64. Now, early to mid 1986 I went round a friend's house after school, my friend Dean, and he wanted to show me the Commodore 64 because he knew I had a Spectrum, and he said the Commodore 64 was better, so I didn't believe him. Went to have a look, and I was absolutely blown away. So these are 6 games that I remember seeing on that day. First up, we have got the game that changed everything. Even if I had seen nothing else that day, it was the music by Rob Hubbard on Crazy Comics that effectively sold me the Commodore 64 where I stood. I mean, if you're into Commodore 64s and you don't know the music Crazy Comics, you've clearly been under some sort of rock for the last 35 years. But that's what did it for me. The game itself is bastard hard. It is such a hard game. It is it's basically one of those we're going to make it like an arcade game and change the name of it. This is basically a Commodore 64 conversion of the arcade game Mad Planets. And it's a bit of a tricky one. But another thing that really drew me in about this, you know, compared to what I was used to with the Spectrum, was the sprites being flung around the screen and how smooth they was moving about, and the fact that when my ship gets near them it didn't change colour. And that's the big thing. For me, the Commodore 64 felt more like an arcade experience with some of these early games. Obviously I didn't do very well in that go, so we'll click on that and then we'll have another quick go. But I've always found this game difficult. I think the arcade version had a spinner on the joystick so you could change direction, whereas on the Commodore 64 version you're only facing upwards. But you know, you've got to remember, I had a Spectrum for a couple of years, and as much as I did love the Spectrum when I had it, as soon as I saw and heard this, I was absolutely blown away. Now, for a start, I couldn't believe the sound was coming out the telly. I had a 48K plus, so I was used to the little beeper. But to hear this coming out of the telly at full blast, it really was something else. And the fact that I had music while I was playing as well. I need to revisit this game a lot and get better at it, because I was a lot better at it than I am now back then. But then obviously I didn't have thousands upon thousands of games to play. Yeah, like everyone, I had a few pirate tapes and that, you know, C90s full of games and what have you. But this was the game. This was the first game I remember seeing that absolutely blew me away. And this led to me selling my Spectrum for 75 quid to a friend of my dad's, and my friend Dean had 2 Commodore 64s, and one of them he was prepared to sell, and he sold it to me for 80 quid, and I got the Commodore 64, power supply, the RF lead, a C2N data set. I think I had an original copy of Rambo, Ghostbusters, and something else, and a couple of C90s full of obviously, you know, copied stuff with a little tape counter numbers next to them. But yeah, for me, it's, you know, it's quite easy to say, oh, it was a life-changing experience. But for me it was, because this led to a lifetime love and appreciation for SID music, which, if you watch my channel, you know, every other week I put a SID FX SID video up. You know, I've recorded albums for you know, to put out on c64audio.com. I've done an album for Cytronic. I've helped out with the 8-Bit Symphony, and it all comes back to this moment of hearing Crazy Comics by Rob Hubbard back in 1986. and I've never been without Sid music since then. So the next pit stop, ha ha ha, on our little journey is what I consider to be one of the greatest two-player home computer games of all time. This was another game that I played a lot back in the day, and there was something to be said about sitting there with your friend next to you, each with a joystick of choice, just racing. And I mean, you had a plethora of tracks on here to choose. Well, I say plethora, 6, which for a single load game is fairly impressive for the time. You could both put your names in, and you could sit there and you could literally spend hours racing, especially if you put in like a season and you put a high lap count in for each. So here we are with a race underway. And one of the good things about this was one of the first split screen games that I ever remember playing. So if you was racing fairly close, you could see each other on the screens, which definitely added some fun and games to it. When you were trying to block each other, like you could see me in the bottom screen there briefly. But not only that, this is a really, really good game. I mean, I featured this game in my video I did where I was asking the question, was the Commodore 64 rubbish at Horizon Chase driving games? Which, looking at this, obviously it's not. I mean, you've effectively got 2 tracks running here, and it is so smooth. And this is a game that's still fun to play today. All right, the fact you've got to hold fire on the joystick as well as hold forward on the joystick as well as fire, doesn't lend to the best controls. But I have to admit, when I'm playing this on the C64 or the C64 Mini, I've put a CJM control file in there that maps up to one of the buttons as well. So I literally got to hold a button down, which does make it a little bit easier. But yeah, it's all good fun. This game, there is a lot of tyre management. As you can see, my car is the top one, and you can see the little lines appearing on the front wheels there. That is literally your wear, and that colour changes all the way through. And when it starts going white and then red, you've got a problem, and you need to get in the pits and change your tyres. And I saw this game before I saw the first pit stop game. So to me, this was the first game where you actually did go in the pits and you could refuel your car, change your tyres, and it added an interesting aspect to the game. So even though I don't need to because it's a short race, I will go in the pits. And what you've got to do is you've got to click on matey there, and then you wander him down and pick up a wheel, touch it to them ones, and it basically gives you a new one. No, I didn't want to take it off again. You walk around to the other side of the car and you do the same again with the other wheel. Now what I should have done here to start with was the bloke with the fuel hose, because back then F1 cars used to refuel, put it in while you're changing the tyres to save time. But I wanted to illustrate what would happen if you left it. I mean, it would have happened anyway because it's a short race. If you let the fuel fill all the way up and don't take it off, bang, it completely empties and you've got to start again, thus wasting more precious lap time. But seeing as this is a 3-lap race, I wouldn't have needed to refuel other than to show what's going on. So I'll let it fuel up. Then we'll carry on racing, and I'll attempt to show you what happens when you blow a tyre. So you click back on the car, and off you go. And that's handy, getting a shunt from behind. That's an instant turbo boost from another car. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I mean the computer driver, there's no way he's going to pit now. I mean, I didn't really need to pit, although I was hammering the tyres a bit to make an example. But it's just, this is just one of them games. I mean, it's so smooth. This is as smooth to play as Pole Position was on the arcade at the time. Alright, now the graphics are not as good as an arcade game. There's no argument there. Although the graphics on this were a damn sight better than the C64 Pole Position, which wasn't a terrible game to play, but it just wasn't as smooth as this. Now, as we'll see a bit later on in the video, you know, Epyx did make some stunning games for the Commodore 64. So as you can see, the tyres are starting to show signs of wear again now. I'm still on lap 2 and the computer's on, just started lap 3. And barring a massive accident of him blowing his tyres, which is highly unlikely, there's not a chance I'm going to catch him now. This is one of those games where the left to right controls are a bit twitchy. Your car does fly about, but it's also one of those games that you learn how to control the car. You learn to tap control rather than just yank the joystick left and right, which is something I seem to have forgotten how to do. They say about muscle memory. Well, my muscle memory is well and truly buggered off for this. Still a great game to play though. I was so pleased that this was included on the C64 Mini. I mean, even though I have got real Commodore 64s, the convenience of the Mini just sat under the telly, especially for single load games like this, is absolutely perfect. I've got so used to a control pad that the control pad I don't use the joystick, because I find Competition Pro style joysticks just make my hands ache now. Getting old. But a gamepad's fine. The PlayStation years have completely conditioned me to control pads. Anyway, we're on lap 3 now. And as you can see, the computer player is just about to head into the last corner. I must say, it's also a fairly good reproduction of the tracks on here as well. All right, you haven't got, you know, all the roadside objects and stuff like that, you know, the grandstands that you'd get on modern racing games, but the actual shape of the tracks is all there. So that's the computer finished his race. So I'll try and twat the hell out of my tyres now to show you what happens if you smack your tyres up too much. Like that. It blows, you're off the side of the track, and there I go, I've got a DNF. But what a game. That is one of the best driving games on any 8-bit computer. It might not look that flashy, but it's a good one. Now, talking of games that tend to be quite difficult and a little bit hard, here we have got Uridium. Now, this come out around about March 1986, and I'm pretty sure it had been out only a couple of weeks when I saw this round Dean's. And this is another one of those games that left me dumbfounded that this was happening on a home computer, because to all intents and purposes, for me, this was literally an arcade quality shoot 'em up, and just as difficult. Let's get a game going. Now, being an arcade shoot 'em up, with the exception of when the enemy ships turn up, or as we say these days, respawn, and the little heat-seeking things that come out of those flashing squares that you can see there. Like all shoot 'em ups, this is pretty much a memory game. You remember the layout of the dreadnoughts from trial and error, and you can do it. Now, I only ever completed this game back in the day using an invincibility poke, because it is bloody hard. There's 15 levels on this game, and they do get progressively harder. So you blow up everything on the floor, avoid crashing into stuff, and you land at the end, and here you've got a little game where you can bolster your score up. which I didn't do particularly well on. And then you take off like that, and you can shoot anything you've missed if it appears in time on the way back, and that is the first level done. Now I'm not sure that the emulator here is showing just how silky smooth this game was scrolling. I mean, like I've said, I've got real Commodore 64s, and when you see this running on 50 Hz CRT, it is unbelievably smooth. Then when you go back to 1986 and you show someone that's not used to this sort of game, this sort of scrolling, it's very, very impressive indeed. So I'm just hanging about here waiting for it to say land now. There are some ships down the bottom there, but I'll try and get them on the way out. And then we go on to the bonus game again. And all this is really good for is adding to your score, you know, to get you closer to an extra life. And I'm pretty sure that an extra life is 10,000. So we'll see this add up. Yep, that noise is an extra life. We take off again. Come barreling down, quickly get them ships down there that you do get the score for if you shoot them on the way back. And we head on to level 3. Now I do like the use of different colours. I know there's a few people that say, "Oh, it's all brown," but it's not. That is orange with brown shadows on it. It does look browner on the PAL format. If you see that on an NTSC screen running on an American 64, say, it is a lot more orange than it's brown. Oh, that was close. So, same thing as before. Destroy all the ground targets. And there's a heat-seeking thing, and shouldn't have gone quite so fast there. But it is a case of learning the levels. It has been a while since I played this, although saying that, I have played it recently, because this is another game that was included on the C64 Mini. Quite pleased about that actually. It's definitely a decent game to have. I managed to avoid the heat seeker that time, but not crashing into the wall. But an absolutely stunning shoot 'em up. That was shocking. Still, level 3, not bad. I think even when I used to play this a lot, I think I once managed to get to level 6 when I wasn't using pokes to get all the way through it. And what do you get at the end of this game? Well, at the end of this game, when you complete it, on the last level there is a line of the uprights that you cannot fly through, and obviously when you destroy the dreadnought you can fly over all of those, and you get a nice message at the end that says, "Spoilers, nice shooting, turkeys." But definitely an arcade level of difficulty game. And to be fair, you know, the arcade was the pinnacle in the mid-80s of what people wanted. So the closer it was to the arcade, the better, and that included the difficulty. Absolute classic. You all know what's coming next.
Another visitor. Stay a while. Stay forever.
So, Impossible Mission. Another classic game from 1984. Another really good game by Epix as well. Almost unparalleled animation on the main character. In fact, fairly nice graphics throughout. Now this is a platform game, and in this game, and the voice you heard is Professor Elvin Atombender, who basically hates the world because there was a power cut during his game of giggling penguin invaders from outer space in the vicinity of Ursa Minor, and he was unable to complete it, so that gave him the ump so much he's going to destroy the planet. So you've been sent in where other agents fail to try and thwart his plans, and do this by trying to find a secret code from pieces you find in furniture that's lying around, and you have to avoid all the robots. There's many different types of robots. Some, like this one, only move a little bit, even though I still managed to get killed by it. Others move further, some shoot lightning, and you move up and down the floors using the lift. That computer terminal I've just run past, you use that to put the robots to sleep if you've managed to get a pass card of that description, or to reset the lifts in a level if you've cocked up and you've got a card like that as well. And basically what you do is you stand in front of the pieces of furniture and you push up on the joystick and you searches, and generally the bigger the piece of furniture the longer the search takes, and you either get one of the passes, or you get a piece of the puzzle, or you get nothing. Now you can get extra lift reset and robot sleep passes in a room where you have to follow a musical sequence, but I'll talk about that when we get there. So we'll search this, nothing there. You know, I'm not doing a proper playthrough here, I'm just whizzing through for the purposes to look. So now this clearly shows some different types of robots. You've got the one there on the right that's whizzing about. You've got the one on the second level that's just turning, firing, and the one on the bottom level where I am that's moving, firing, moving, firing, moving, firing. So you can have, well, that's no good. Kissing a robot is not the best move ever. So you do have some variety, and you have to kind of stop in the room and look first and kind of plan what you're doing rather than just barreling in. Now, here's one of the rooms where you can get an extra pass, and what you've got to do is you listen to the musical notes, and then you have to choose them in ascending order. And if you do it correctly, the board flashes and you'll get either a lift reset or a robot sleep pass. And there you go, that flashing means I've done it properly. Now you can do it more than once. I mean, you can do it as many times as you like, but every time you do it in the room, it goes up by one note. So it becomes like a game of Simon, if you remember that, but a bit more difficult. Especially when you get on to anything over 5 notes. Mind you, up here be having trouble with 4 notes, so. But yeah, so that'll be another pass. There's a fair bit of variety to the rooms as well. And if I remember correctly, if you load the disc version of this, then you always start on the same level and the rooms are always set out the same way. Whereas the tape version, when you loaded it, it would randomise once it was loading. So the cure to randomise it, if you want a different game on a disc version, is simply to press the restore key, and it will reset the entire game and all the room layouts and everything. I'll try my hardest to jump over this robot. I don't think there's quite enough space there. So in this room you've got 3 robots that are just basically dumb, just sitting there doing nothing. They just turn to face the way you are. They just basically look at you. And you've got the one at the bottom that follows you around, so he's hovering underneath me. If I go that way, he comes all the way over, but he's not shooting. And then if I move over, see, he's gone to hover right underneath me again. So that's kind of like a tracking robot, and that's another piece of puzzle found. Or piece of code puzzle. And that's what you get if you log into one of the terminals, so you can reset the lifting platforms or temporarily disable the robots. Not that the robots really need disabling in this room. Maybe, as I just run into that one. So it doesn't make them like transparent. You can still run into them and hurt yourself. Yes, and I'm sure they will. So barring the main room at the end where you put the code in, I've kind of showed you pretty much everything that's in the game. But it's such a good game to play. The controls are tight. It is responsive. I mean, it's one of those games. Hang on, let's have a listen to sound. You might hear a lot. Now there is a time limit on this game, and every time you die you do lose a certain amount of time. Right, so we'll get the little ARM computer up. And so that's the flip up and down, that's the flip left and right, that's the trash can. Got the pause button, pause, get it? You've got the undo button, you've got the off button, and you've got the one to change at the bottom to change the colours, because you've got to overlay the pieces onto each other to make the code. And if the colours are different, you need to be able to change those colours to make a match. And you can basically drag them here, flip them round, and drop them on the top of each other. And that's how you find the pieces. But I'm not going to go too far into it, other than say it's a classic game. Thanks to Vangelis and the film Chariots of Fire. This is a tune that pretty much everyone knew back in the mid-80s. And this is Hypersports, which was the first sports game that I played on the Commodore 64. I'd played Daley Thompson's Decathlon on the Spectrum, which is a great game. Ruined many a metal panel of an old rubber key Spectrum, particularly my mate that used to live next door. He had a very concave ZX Spectrum by the time we'd all battered it playing Decathlon. But I'd never played a sports game on the Commodore 64 until I played this one. And this is another arcade conversion, and I think it's a really good arcade conversion as well. You know, a lot of these games that I saw, I mean, obviously I was being shown the best of the best. You know, Dean didn't bother showing me Trolley Wally or China Miner or Hercules or any of the games like that. So you put your name in the arcade style, and you've got a few events to do. Let's see if we can get through them. So first up, we've got the swimming. And this one is basically left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right for your strokes. And you press the fire button to breathe. And much like Decathlon, is you wiggle the joystick or batter the keys as quick as you can. And I always found these games were much better on keys, much in the same way as Track and Field was just using buttons in the arcade. Because these games are the destroyer of many a joystick. Basically, Quickshot didn't stand a chance against this. So there you go, that was the swimming. Now we're on to the skeet shooting. This is just basically left and right, depending on which site the skeets are in. With a bit of practice, it's actually not too difficult on the first time round to get a perfect on that. But I've got enough to qualify. but you get 3 goes at this. So let's have some shooting sound effects for a minute. So the second go there, I've equalled my first go score. Just a question of getting the rhythm right. I find once you cock it up, it just all goes to bollocks. Well, I've managed to pull that back a bit. Not enough though. Still enough to qualify, but I'd already qualified on the first go. So from that, we move on to, I suppose it's the horse. Jump on there, get on there, press fire at the right time, and do left and right to spin him round and try and land on the feet. And that I find is a lot easier than the arcade version. Don't get it every time though. Like that, where I've missed jumping on the ramp. But I found that the difficulty in this bit is getting the push off the box right. You need to do it just then to get as high as possible. I mean, I probably could have got 7 somersaults out of that, but didn't want to risk it. Next up, we got archery. And again, you get 3 goes at this. And the wind isn't too bad. I just generally tend to use the first go to try and line up when to loose the arrow off, so you can kind of aim for the bullseye. And the bullseye is at 5 degrees, so you see you've got your degree counter as well, so you want to get that as close to 5 degrees as possible. But even though I use the first lot of arrows to warm up, I did qualify. As you can see by quite the celebration. So I'm getting the height right, it's just me targeting that's a bit off. That's another qualifying score anyway. Not bad. 2700. So really on the last one you should have the good feel of where it is, and they should pretty much all be scoring 400. Or at least get a bullseye. That'd be nice. Oh, just a little bit low. Yep, 3000, we'll have that. Now this is the event I find hardest in the whole of the game. The triple jump. You need to get each one timed right, and you need to get at about 45 degrees. So there, I'm 90 centimetres too short. Yeah, I've overdone it again. Those numbers fly up so quick. If you don't get it right with the timing as well, he just stops halfway through the jump. Right, so one more go to qualify. It's a bit higher. Oh, that's not too bad. Oh, that's perfect. Wow, 10 centimetres. 0.1 over what it should be. We'll take that. So next up, we got the weightlifting. I'm flicking through quite quickly. So you've got flyweight, middleweight, and heavyweight, I believe. I'll do the flyweight, make my life easy. What you do is basically it's another wiggle left and right job. Press fire to get into the stance, wiggle it up, and you got to hold it for a count of 3. But no, I didn't manage it there at all. My timing was a bit out. It's been a while since I've played this, so we'll go again. This time I know what I'm doing now. It's more like it. 150 to qualify, 150 it was. Obviously that goes up every time round. So there we are, we're back round to the beginning again now. Dive in the pool and start swimming. And draw position's a bit better. Don't breathe in the water or that happens. And I'm pretty sure the qualifying times are lower than the first time round. But it's a really, really good conversion of a often overlooked arcade game. It's often overlooked because of track and field and how successful that was. But I've always felt it's a really great game, and it's another one that you can play with your mates. Alright, it's not on the screen at the same time like pole position was, and you take it in turns, but trying to beat each other's scores and put each other off while you're playing is a good laugh. And you know, we did have a good laugh back in the day playing it. I have a good laugh playing it now. I mean, I'm quite surprised I've managed to get all the way round once in one of the first goes I've had in quite some time. And Martin Galway's version of Vangelis's Chariots of Fire is fantastic as well. You know, for someone that had a computer that didn't play a lot of sound, again, this is another amazing piece of music. And you know, yeah, it's a cover tune, but it's an amazing piece of music that's blasting out of the TV speaker, which is something I just wasn't used to. And it all added up to me wanting a Commodore 64. I mean, halfway through the few hours I spent at Dean's to start with, I'd already made my mind up that I had to have one. So that is another classic game, and that's a game that, you know, I enjoyed recording it again for the video. And finally, we come to another game that is considered to be a bona fide classic. It is the classic platform game Monty on the Run. And again, that man Hubbard. Anyway, you start off by selecting your escape kit, which is the rope, the jetpack, barrel of booze, gas mask, and the passport, because without selecting those 5 things you cannot complete the game. And I won't hide the fact I am absolute dog shit at this game. I am really, really bad at it, which is a shame, because you know, there is a built-in cheat mode. You know, you type I want to cheat in the high score. You've got to do is get that coin that's on the top level there, commit suicide, type I want to cheat, and then you start the game again. When you get onto level 2, over that water there is this bit of water coming up, there's a little item you pick up. It turns the big plungers into little spiky things and you're invincible. But that's not really playing the game. I mean, I have completed it like that. But yeah, I'm not the greatest at this, but this game is totally worth it for Rob Hubbard's soundtrack. This is considered by many to be the finest piece of Commodore 64 music. It's not my favourite, I'll quite happily admit that, but it is definitely one of the best. And I mean, this game is deceptively hard. It's a lot harder than it looks. I mean, that's game over already. And we'll quickly ponce about with the high score table and we'll get another game going. You know, for anyone that says, oh, you know, the Commodore 64 is terribly blocky and it can't do the high-res sprites that the Spectrum and the Amstrad and that can do, well, yeah, it can. And the point is proven here. And without colour clash and with sound, so that's kind of a non-statement, really. But anyway, back to the game. Now, the idea of this game is to collect all the stuff and get Monty to freedom on the boat. Try my hardest not to get completely killed by these two again for the entire go. Although it's not going well. Let's just wait and work the timing out. Right, there we go, that's better. Right, the reason I wanted to get to this screen is if you want to get the maximum score in this game, what you need to do is not get hit by a plunger. What you need to do is you need to get over into that other side of the screen, which is a dead end. You need to pick up that item that's sat there nicely on the platform. I was working out the timing, see if there's a pattern to this plunger, because some of them seem to be regular. This one seems to be quite regular, whereas some of the others, there doesn't seem to be any pattern to them. So yeah, getting the maximum score, I can't remember what it is, it's something like 60,000. You have to pick up that dynamite. You pick the dynamite up, you die. So to get the maximum score in this game, you have got to die at least once. There's no way around it. That's quite fiendish. There's quite a few little traps in this. Like there's sometimes you have to use a couple of these lifts, and one of the lifts is a complete red herring. And if you use it, it just fires you into the ceiling and you die. But I've always found this to be, you know, the graphics are really nice. You know, all the sprites move around, and nose to the bollocks is not the best way to get a game over. But yeah, it's a good game, but it's devious, and it's another game that you really need to practice. And you know, recording stuff for the video, this isn't something that I've had time to sit and memorise. I can't remember how many screens there are, so I'm not giving you a lot of information about this game. But the main thing you need to know about it is it's good, and it's got an absolute cracking Rob Hubbard soundtrack. And it is a classic. It's something that I fully intend to sit down and play through again and learn again, because it is, you know, it's quite rewarding to do that sort of thing. So that is my little list of 6 games that I saw that made me want to get a 64 and sell my little Spectrum. And I mean, there was more games we played. I remember the music from Roland's Rat Race on that day, you know, as well as quite a few others. But these are the 6 that really stood out to me, that I still remember now. And it has been quite enjoyable going back and looking at them again. And amazingly enough, Iridium, Monty on the Run, Impossible Mission, and Pit Stop 2, those 4 games were included with the C64 Mini and the full size the C64. So, you know, it's not just me that thinks highly of these games. Obviously, you know, the makers of that computer felt they were worthy of getting the license and of inclusion. So I hope you've enjoyed this little look through of the games that made me want to buy the Commodore 64. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and laters.